Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mysteries Unlimited. We've got a really good show tonight. We got a whole lot of stuff to get to. Uh, I'm not sure we may not even be able to get to all of it. Go ahead and give you a warning. If you see me look like I'm having a heart attack, it's because I have mowed grass all day and weed eat and all that kind of stuff, and it won't be a heart attack. Most likely, it'll be a cramp. So if you see me run and jump and act a fool, it's probably because I'm cramping up. Looking in a little bit in the chat, happy Easter also to everybody, especially Jimmy. And yes, we do have the audio. Hopefully, we're going to try something new with the audio tonight to see if it will. We don't get the feedback. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and bring Leo in, and once Leo gets in here, I want to check with him, and then I got something very important I want to. I guess you can call it a public service announcement type thing. But we do have a very big something we want to reveal toward the end of the show, so stay with us. Let me get Leo in here. Oh, see, that looks like him there. It's him. Hello, Leo.
So, okay, if you're going to do this, it's not a heart attack thing. We need a sign. Well, we need a sign in case it is actually a heart attack, right?
If it's a heart attack, I'll go.
Good enough.
I'll clutch something.
That works for me.
A safe word. Crisco. Are you all right this afternoon?
I'm getting by.
I get these severe cramps in my thighs sometimes. Well, I've been working on the porch, and I've had to do a lot of stooping over. And so the first night it was real good. I mean, I had no cramps, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, I decided to roll over and sort of move my leg up a little bit, and it hit like a ton of bricks. And man, I looked like the Flash getting out of the bed and hobbling through the house.
Oh, the ones that get you in the middle of the night, those ones are the worst. You go from being in a coma to on a severe caffeine high instantly.
Also, I get cramps in my toes. I think it's my blood pressure medicine. I think is what's causing it, and my feet and my toes. Man, it's so painful, and you can't get them to go away. I mean, they'll last for hours. But I guess that's enough of my medical history for right now. See, yeah, leg cramps they're terrible. Before we go on to that, to one of our public service announcement. One time I had a real bad cramp in the back of my thigh, and I took the smart idea that I was going to punch it and try to make it loose. Oh man, you talk about a bruise. My whole thigh was nothing but a big bruise the next day. It was terrible. So I'll never do that again.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of things to get out of cramps, but I don't think punching's ever been one of them.
Poked myself with a big fillet knife one time too in the back of my leg. I was going to skin some fish, and I was walking down some steps, and the door, it didn't have a spring thing on it, and it was kind of coming back at me, and I was trying to hurry, and I stepped and gouged the fillet knife about that far down the back of my thigh. But I cleaned the fish, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, I had 2 blades in me, but I didn't put them there. I got one in the knee in a fight, and had an ex stab me, go for my chest, and I got my arm up, and she completely numbed my forearm for the rest of my life for me. So I appreciate that.
Lasting parting gift.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to turn serious just for a second, and I want to share something. Without a doubt, some of you guys have probably seen this. Okay.
Again?
This is going wild again, guys. This is actually from 2013. Some dudes supposedly out on a fishing boat, and they took several pictures of this Bigfoot walking around the lake. But it won't die. Every year, people are changing the name and location of where this supposedly happened. We've even had it here in Kentucky a time or two. And I talked to a friend yesterday or day before yesterday, and it was in Ohio. They had changed the location to a lake up in Ohio, and her son lives there. And he said there were 200 people out there on the streets, on the road, next to that lake, walking around, looking for this. And it's a story from 2013. It's actually on our website. If you look, I can't remember. I think it's the original sighting was from out Missouri or somewhere like that. But yeah, I just don't believe it's a real Bigfoot. When I first seen the pictures, I didn't know much about it. But seeing how there's multiple pictures of this Bigfoot just wandering around this edge of the lake, and the guys in the boat following around taking pictures, just don't make sense to me. It would have took out of there, in my opinion. But when you see this, it's not nothing new. It's not nothing real. The sheriff's department has not confirmed it. It's not in your local lake or anything like that. It's from 2013.
Yeah, the last time I saw it, it had gone from, I don't know how many different states, to the last time that I saw it was, I believe, Montana.
Well, I seen today, I seen Alabama, and I see Ohio yesterday. So, man, that Bigfoot's traveling, bro.
Yeah, but I will say this: if he's real, he looks severely depressed to be hanging around that long.
Well, you'd be depressed too if you was walking around a beautiful lake and didn't have a fishing pole.
Yeah, I suppose.
Let me see. I got something else I want to get to just before we actually get into our program. I want to alert you. Come on, man. Work with me. Well, let me I'm going to get rid of the Bigfoot around the lake there. Let's try it now. Haha. I think we're cooking now. And I'm eating candy because I just got through. Well, actually, it's a lifesaver because I got through eating. Leo can vouch for me eating too, right, Leo?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I didn't see a thing.
Well, my can of Viennies had run out. I ate early this morning. The next little thing I want to show you is Searching for Sasquatch Part 4, Chapter 4. Eyes in the Night is now on Tubi TV. The Part 3 and 2 is both on there as well, but 3 and 4 actually run. Really, they could run like one long movie. There's some people you'll recognize in the film. They go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and do some Bigfoot research. Some of the sea squatchers are there, and several other people. It's pretty entertaining, so it's free to watch on Tubi. So I wanted to plug that just a little bit, give you something to watch, maybe for the weekend. So promo out of the way.
Promo done.
All right, now, Leo, I guess we will want to start with some of your groovy stuff, don't we?
Whatever you want to start with. I say we work our way up to the difficult stuff, though, because I got to come down a little bit.
Okay, let's we won't do that one. Well, let me take a gander at something here, and we'll see if we can't. Well, yeah, that's beautiful. I like that one too. Oh yeah, huh? That's pretty cool. We definitely want to get to that. Okay, so what we're going to start with, we're going to get to some Bigfoot pictures and whatnot. But right now, we want to start with some track castings. Not casting, but prints, tracks. Okay, I swear this is much smoother in my mind. There we go. And this is one from Leo, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What can you tell us about it, Leo?
I think that one should be from either 2017 or 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And the difficulty with tracking in here is it's not so bad right here, but the general area, and you'll see it in some of the other pictures.
Well,
It's
we had a first picture here that was this one, I think. As you can see, it's
yeah. See down there by the water where I got that one. That's
mm-hmm.
where I get better tracks, obviously, because down by the
Sure.
water. But the rest of area one is just a massive amount of pine needles and maple leaves all over the ground. So the only time I really get tracks in there is if they're running, because it'll they'll do a little bit of a kickback when they run.
Right.
So
Well, that's
in
the thing.
right there is
That shows the you're talking about the mid-tarsal breaks, what a lot of people call it. And what people fail to realize is a lot of times you will not see that.
no, I see it more often than not. I don't see it immediately. If they were to be cast, maybe, but
Mm-hmm. But of course, anytime you're around, creek or body of water, you're going to get better tracks. It's more conducive for tracks.
yeah, and like I said, that the rest of that area is miserable. So the only for tracking, it's to get any detail is other than stride isn't.
Okay,
It's
speaking of
very
that,
hard.
we've got a stride there. Is
Yeah,
this the
see,
same area?
yeah, that's still that's an area one. That's just a couple feet from the little gifting stump that I used to gift in that area.
So on these tracks, do you think it came to the gifting area or?
Yeah, we'll see where those that's the last track on that side of the. It's like an above ground route that runs along there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one more track after that, but I'm pretty sure it was the female that left those tracks. She jumped over the gifting stump, and there was a little bit of a landing in the pine needles. You could see where she landed.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's how I got those tracks. If she wouldn't have been running, it wouldn't have kicked anything back to even leave a track.
Do you remember how big the tracks were, individuals?
I don't, and I do. How big the stride was, or how big the tracks are?
The tracks are.
Oh yeah, these ones are. These are either the 14s or there's a 12 and a half. The two females, one of them is she's not all that tall at all. So I think hers are like 12 and a half, and I think that's what those were.
Well, one thing too that I've noticed, and I could actually see it in your photograph there, is that look at this step and look at this step. They're far apart, but it looks like there's another step right here. And I've noticed that sometimes they don't always take a full stride. That sometimes they're kind of close together at times.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
kind of noticed.
if they're just with this, like I said, I feel safe in assuming she jumped over that, and that's how things played out. But yeah, if they're just strolling, I mean, if they're not out there for any purpose, they're not running, if they're just walking through their area, there's not going to be a big, huge stride for, they stop and look around and,
Right.
so they're home.
I know I found one. Well, there was a whole lot of tracks, but it had stood under a tree, and there was tracks just where it just kind of shifted around, looked one way, looked the other. I mean, I don't know. There's probably a dozen or more where it just stood there and just moved around, and probably not in a 4 or 5 foot circle. And
Yeah, I've had that with tracks around a structure. Like one going a track here, and they're both kind of almost pigeon-toed, and then a few more tracks over here, and people always say, well, how come there's never any tracks found around these structures? Well, don't assume because it's not on TV that tracks haven't been found around structures. They have.
I found them. I had
I know you have.
I had a old rotting log that was right next to a structure, and that Bigfoot had stepped on that rotting log and smashed it down. It was like a 13-inch track or something. And every day I'd come, well, not every day. Every time I'd go in there, I'd always check and see if it would, there was more than that track. But just that was the only place that was really soft enough that it would leave a track. And it had pushed down into that log, an old rotten log, and it didn't make a track right there. All you was getting was probably the top half of the foot into the log, and then you could see the rest of it where the fibers had fell out and kind of made it soft around the log. You could see the rest of the impression. And that was within just a few feet of the structure. So that's pretty interesting. That's pretty obvious of what made the structure.
It is, but I hear that a lot, that people in generally the same bunch that shoot their mouth off about everything, but nobody ever finds tracks around structures. They think if it's not on TV that nobody does, but many of us do.
Well, the one I like is that they say, well, you didn't see them make it, so you don't know what made it. Well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, I know squirrels don't make them, so.
It certainly, when it comes to intelligent design, it brings it down. It brings it down to very few things that could actually do it.
Right. You would think it'd have to have a thumb, so you would think.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next picture. I don't know. I got it on here. I'm not sure what this one is. Can you tell me?
This is the one that I assume you have the handprint on here?
Yes, I do.
So this is the footprint across. There's an ATV path that I told you about that runs behind behind the property line. So technically, it's not the property owner's property. It's kind of just a shared path. Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, this was a left footprint, 17-inch, and where I got the handprint was from right behind this. And when you see how the handprint is, the way I stood there and looked at it, it almost looked as if he had started to fall backwards and braced himself, and that's what made the handprint. It looked like that's how I pictured it anyway. But and it made perfect sense, other than it was only the one print there, and the next one was in the grass.
Okay, let's see. Is that also associated with it? Is that from the first?
No, that's from the other area that we were.
Okay. Okay, now because I know the next one is the actual handprint.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting if you actually look at the handprint. If you know anything about maybe what we talked about on the last show. Leo, I'll let you spill the beans on that if you want to tell us about this handprint and how it relates to a person we talked about in the last show.
Well, I had seen Paul Freeman's print probably 1,000 times before, his handprint, but never really paid that much attention to it because it's always the same thing on every show. Meldrum pulls out the cast and it's the handprint and it's big, and then so I didn't really pay much attention to it, and I had forgotten a lot of things about the Freeman film. It was always one of my favorites, but I'd forgotten a lot of things about it until we did the show, and you showed that print, and I'm like, he's got the thumb right. He did not fake that because he's got the thumb right. And
he wouldn't know that. There's no way.
Who's gonna add that detail? I mean, he wouldn't know that. So that if there was any doubt in my mind, it was gone, because I got this in 2018, and when I saw that again, I was like, no, he wouldn't know that. He's not going to add that. He's not going to know to do that.
And what we're talking about here is that the thumb is really low. It sits low on the hand, as compared probably to a human. You think how a human's hand would be, but this thing sits more back, more down toward the elbow. And there's just no way Freeman would have come up with this idea to put the thumb like that. He would have probably put it more like a human hand. It would be my guess if he was going to fake it and you didn't really know anything about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. You would probably not put the thumb down more toward the elbow.
If you didn't know the thumb was there, that would be an odd detail to add. So if he faked that, it was by dumb luck that he knew about the thumb.
Do you have any measurements on this handprint? Do you roughly how big it was?
I do not have any measurements. All I can tell you is I could take 2 of my hands, 1 3/4 of one hand for that palm. Couldn't reach down to where that was with my thumb without, my hand becoming extremely uncomfortable. And I probably could have fit a finger and a half into the holes. I didn't want to do it, but if I wanted to, I probably could have fit a finger and a half into each one of those finger holes. So we're looking at a real good size hand, yeah.
So that falls into what we've heard people talk about them having very large hands. I've heard it described as a baseball mitt size hand. So I wish you would have cast this though.
Oh man, that one and the really good prints from New Brunswick. I never really took casting a track all that serious, but those 2 I wish I would have done. I want one now for a keepsake, but I didn't really bother. I mean, once I knew who was leaving the track, they were going to leave more, and I didn't,
Well, finding a good quality track is I mean, I have found numerous tracks over the years. Probably getting close to 1,000 or more by now. And I'd always say, I'll find a better one. I'll find one that's got more detail, and I'll cast it. And then then I'd get home. After being out in the mountains for several hours, traveling a lot of miles, and I'll say, man, I wish I'd have cast that. So now even when I don't. When I'm kind of iffy about it, I'll go ahead and try to cast it. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I don't have enough plaster with me because instead of carrying a very large tub with me, I'll put some in a large Ziploc bag. Usually it's enough to do 1 or 2 13, 14-inch tracks. Makes your backpack heavy, especially around here. Our mountains are very steep, so extra weight going up the mountains.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that we both have a lot of activity in the areas that we go to, but to get to find that one almost flawless track that you want that to be the one that you cast and keep. Those are rare.
I've got quite a few castings. Some of them are, of course, more detailed than others. But now I don't think I had one that I cast. It was a small track. I'm going to show a picture of it later. There was actually several tracks there. One of them had really good toe definition, but it was real moist in the area. So I put my plaster in there, and once I started getting the track up, it crumbled, kind of the toes and stuff did. So I kind of lost the detail on it. I still have it. I'm going to try to glue it together the best I can. For those that don't know, maybe it's good information for you. If you do break a cast, you can use Gorilla Glue, and the kind where you have to moisten both pieces and then squirt the stuff on it and put it together. That works pretty good. I've glued a few together that way from the patty casting. I made a mold. I bought one of those and made a mold of it, and over the years I've gave some away, sold some. take them to shows and stuff like that. So I broke one of them, and I thought, man, I'm gonna glue it together. I'm not just gonna trash it. And so I glued it together with Gorilla Glue. So if maybe Gorilla Glue can send me some free samples. But yeah, that's very interesting where the thumb location is. And one thing I noticed about this too, it appears that the thumb is considerably smaller than say the fingers and such.
It does, and when Nancy and I really studied when we went back and forth sharing pictures. We really studied.
And for some reason, are we still live? Are you there, Leo?
I think so.
What happened?
You up and left, and then I up and left.
I don't know. I wonder if we're still rolling live. Can somebody confirm we are still live? I don't know, because I don't have that part of it running now. It was definitely some kind of glitch there, for sure. And then we were talking about this handprint.
Yeah, so anyway, like I said, me and Nancy, when it's something like this, if it was something new, because I didn't have any. I've seen handprints before, but nothing to this much detail. So, and it was something new, so we really studied the guts out of it. And her theory on the thumb thing was that if the thumb went in sideways, like on an angle,
mm-hmm.
that could be the reason why because to me it looks like it possibly could have went in on an angle, but who's to say?
Yeah, hard to say. Like you said, you thought maybe it had slipped and was falling. So
yeah, well, that was the thing, and that's no matter how many times, every time I see these pictures, either the footprint or this one, I think the same thing, and I can actually picture it in my head, and it's just I could be way that may not have happened at all, but right. That's just the way it popped into my head at the time.
Okay, let's excuse me. Let's go to the next photo. Which now this people may not. If you go back and watch last week's show, this photograph will mean more to you. Leo, tell us where this location is and why we are showing this. And we got actually two more too. So
this is up on the mountain where we get the pictures that we showed from
the pictures of the Bigfoot.
Yeah, 2019, and the reason why we're showing these ones, the next few pictures, are to show the difference in, like, up in these areas, it can be a bright sunny day, but you have a lot of a canopy over you with the trees in that, so it can go from so bright that looking at something can almost blind you to right. This picture, which is the same day, and it looks about 9 o'clock at night.
You get shadows not only from the canopy, but also if you're down in that ravine, you're getting shadows from that. And that's why when you take a picture, one of the pictures was kind of more of a silhouette almost, compared to the other one that Rebecca took of the Bigfoot. Wherever it is, looking down at you, I guess it was from around the tree. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, that was exactly what he was doing. He was looking down at me in the water, because right where the angle of his eyes, that's where I was standing, right there. But yeah, basically we're showing these to show that how shadowy and how light can go from really bright to really dark in that area.
Well, just imagine if you're there and clouds roll in and block the sun, and you're down in this little ravine. Man, it's going to get really dark on you fast.
Well, when you climb back up the mountain on one side, you're climbing up probably 100 feet. On the other side, you're climbing up maybe 20, and then taking a path that will lead you back out to the where the road is. And it's like walking from night to day. When you walk out of the woods and then get out onto the road, everything's all bright.
Well, no, I think we on your part here we have went through the tracks, but now we want to get to something that probably. Well, I know you caught some heat over
A
it.
little
but,
bit.
But that's okay. People who don't know, they don't know.
Well, all the heat that's been fired has been shot down, and to
Well,
the
I
point.
think last week we killed the Photoshop theory.
Well, I mean, when you have to resort to after you're being proven wrong to threatening to sue somebody because you've been proven wrong in public.
So what we're fixing to show you guys is a picture of a Bigfoot that Leo called Carl, correct?
Yep.
With a K, not a C. Not Coral from Walking Dead, but Carl.
Carl as in Carl Malden because of his nose.
Oh, okay. And Leo, I want you to tell us a little bit about getting this photograph. And I know this is very hard to say. This is a tree that is uprooted, and you are looking at the roots of the tree. But if you just kind of zoom in just a little, you can see it's more than just a tree stump. And Leo, tell us a little bit about how you got this picture and what went on that day.
So, to make a long story short, I won't go back and go into the whole history about how I ended up on the property and all that, because that's a show in itself. So, so the that night I had gone in and gifted early in the evening, came back home, crashed for a little bit, and got back out there between 2 and 3 a.m. And there was the normal, noises over this way, noises over that way kind of thing, but nothing that you couldn't say wasn't, any more than a rodent running around. And there's deer roaming around in there too. So that, there was nothing major about that happened that night. I did a few trips around the property, nothing out of the ordinary. I am going to give a little bit of history though. I had been gifting here for 4 years. Well, almost 4 years with not a sighting, not anything more than I would gift. They would build something. I would at the time I thought it was just but I would gift, he would gift back. There was a shined up rock put on an elm leaf, and a few little different things like that. But mainly what he was doing was he would build these structure things, and it did a lot of arches and things like that. And I don't think they meant anything more than he knew that I would stop and study them, so he'd keep making more. He obviously knew that I enjoyed it, so that was, I think, his way of gifting back.
And let me I want to make sure we set the stage here. You thought that this was a one lone Bigfoot, older.
Oh yeah,
Bigfoot.
I didn't know up until then. I was 100% convinced that there was one in there, and that was all. I didn't see anything To the contrary, I didn't. I would see little flashes over here, little flashes over there, but that is still not a clear sighting. That's movement, or your eyes playing tricks on you in shadows again. So yeah, I was convinced he was by himself and remained that way until the following year when I crossed the creek and went over into what I say is area 2. But oh yeah, that whole time I was sure that it was just one. So anyway, where was I on the
Well,
whole gifting thing?
when you said you was gifting and he was leaving building structures for you to look at.
Yeah,
Had you
so
gifted it on this day, this particular day?
yeah, I actually went in, gifted, went back home, and conked out for a while, had a nap, and went back out in the middle of the night. So the plan was to do an all nighter that night, and it didn't work out. I had ended up having to crash, so I ended up going out about 2:30, 3 o'clock. I didn't want to waste the whole night. I wasn't going to be able to get back out there for a week, and even with this happening, I still didn't end up getting back out there for over a week actually. But so I'm the next morning I'm ready to pack it up and go home. It was a nice night and had a good time out. It was nothing major. And I'm ready to leave. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to do one more lap just around the immediate gifting area. So I go to do that. And for whatever reason, I had looked over at that root ball probably, I don't know, 40, 50 times. But this time the middle was blocked. There's right where he's at, there's a dip in the root ball, and it was blocked. So that caught my attention immediately, and then I locked eyes with him. So that's how it started. That's how it happened.
What were you taking your pictures with?
I was taking them with a Samsung SJ something or other. It
Cell phone.
wasn't. It wasn't my phone. It was my girlfriend's phone. Um, but it was just a Samsung cell phone.
Uh, was there any kind of sound vocalization that came from him?
Not a thing.
Was any sound came from you?
If those files are sealed, if there was no, I mean I didn't like right away. I thought there was a guy standing there, but well, why is there a guy standing there? And
about how far away are you when you took this picture, roughly?
I think the picture started being taken at about 15 feet.
About 15 feet.
And
Well, you took more than one photograph, correct?
I got 7 altogether. I got 5 of him at the root ball, 3 different on 3 different angles at the root ball, and I got 2 more of him walking away. But the ones I got of him walking away are being taken while I'm slipping over the down trees, and I'm falling on the ground, and I take 2 pictures of him walking away. So what I ended up with was a tall, blurry blob with one leg out and one arm out. So it wasn't worth sharing then, and it still isn't. I mean, I have at one
Right.
time.
Yeah,
Because
I've actually seen it.
yeah, somebody told me I didn't have them, so I said, well, yeah, I do, and this is why I didn't share them, because they're awesome.
We got a question here too, Leo, and I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer. You see the white kind of on him. Do you think that was a part of the foliage, or you think that's from him, or you think it's his hair turning silver looking, or what do you
No,
think?
no, that's his hair. He's like now he's almost fully well, almost white, like down to here. Now that's part of his beard.
So we can assume that this is a older
Oh yeah,
Bigfoot.
he's old. He's very old.
His hair is turning white.
Yep.
type thing. Now we got some other pictures of this same event in the same area. We've got to share them too. This is one that has been, I think this was cropped, or correct? Somebody cropped this one for you?
It, the things that I do with pictures is, depending on where I'm going to post them,
Mm-hmm.
I'll resize, brighten, whatever, nothing major. But yeah, that one, I have ones where he looks thinner, and then other people have taken them and blown them so he has a really round face. But no, that's about the closest right there is what you're going to get.
Well, what I noticed in this one, his position has changed slightly compared to the other photograph.
What I ended up within the pictures is because what he did was, as he moved from side, he moved over to his left as I started walking toward him. And don't ask me what possessed me to walk toward him. All I know is what I told you back then. My brain went, take an effing picture, because I didn't know how to use video on her phone. It was maybe the third time I had ever had her phone out there do it. So, yeah, that's what my brain said to do, and I walked toward him. And as I did, he kind of went off like this a little bit, which made me think he was going to come out this way, and I'd be able to get, pictures of him walking away better than what I ended up with. But he did the opposite. He backed up this way, then turned and went that way. So, yeah.
What I find very interesting about this is that his lips are pinkish, look pinkish to me. And I know other Bigfoot, usually their lips are described as being black or dark.
Mm-hmm. Or gray.
Or grayish, yeah. And another thing about this particular individual is that his nose is much larger than what a lot of people might think a Bigfoot's nose would be.
And shaped completely different. I mean, if it wasn't so big, then that I wouldn't think it's the way his nostrils are would be that uncommon, maybe. But it's because the rest of his nose is so big that he has quite a honker there.
And his hair is pretty unkempt looking too. I've seen a few Bigfoot myself, and usually their hair is pretty, it's pretty clean looking. His is pretty rough looking.
Man, he's pretty rough looking. Period. He's not real tall. When I measured up over the side of the root ball there, he's just within the 7 foot to 7'3" range, but thin. And that's what led up to something we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But yeah, I was actually worried for him because he's thin, old, and did not look in good shape at all.
Right. If you've seen this individual, which I know you have, if you've seen this individual walking through the forest, you think it's possibly sick, it's old, maybe not going to make it very long. And I'm sure you probably thought about the same thing.
Well, I remember the advice you gave me when I was freaking out, because I didn't think he was going to live through the winter. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's as far as I know, since I haven't seen him since 2019. He was thriving then. He was fine, but
just old.
He's just old and thin. But
somebody had made a comment about his head not being the cone shape, but now that is kind of a misnomer to some degree. Not all of them have that. It's kind of rare that you get at the angle where you can actually see it, for one, but not all of them have that conical head. Is from what I've studied over them, I've not seen the individual we seen last summer looking through binoculars. He didn't have no really a cone-shaped head neither.
No, the one that the pictures we showed last week, that would probably be the most cone-shaped head, the one that I would say had that characteristic. But no, that's not. I think that's more of a TV thing too, when they do their illustrations and that. But no, more often than not, like I said with the footprints, more often than not, no, I don't see much of that at all. But
Well, I think people need to consider the location. Maybe it's a locational thing that certain groups of them do have it more often than others. I know, just like if you take people who live in other parts of the United States or Canada, their appearance is slightly different, even though they're still a person. Their appearance is quite a bit different sometimes. Hair color, shape of the nose, shape of the head, ears, that type of thing. Everybody ain't got these big sexy pork chops like me, but some people's got little small ears. So it can always, the appearance is going to always vary. The body shape and things like that are going to be very familiar to you because it's humanoid looking.
But I remember not only, and I have to talk about it, but that winter, I got in touch with Tom and I said, "What? Oh, and there's something else that I wanted to mention about his lips since you mentioned it."
Sure.
He has a scar. If you look close, he has a scar on his lip that comes down like that. Okay. And the other thing too is that in the first picture, it looks like his lips are almost like puckered inward.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas the pictures progressed to this one, they're completely out and where they should be. But it looks in the first picture like he's kind of puckering his lips inward. Nobody's ever really noticed that, but Nancy and I used to talk about it a lot.
Well, I think it's true. I know some people said that they thought it was just a homeless guy.
Oh yes, people said that I went and hired a homeless guy to go out and stand in front of behind a root ball. Oh, the stupid things that have been said about this, and same thing I always say. I don't care if you think it's real or not. That's none of my business, really. But when people lie about it, that's where it gets me. And some of the things that people said, go out and disrespect a homeless person by asking them to do that. And you talk about feeling like giving someone a cuff upside the head for saying stupid stuff. That's insulting.
I've seen quite a few homeless people, and that's much rougher looking than any homeless person I've ever seen. That's rough looking right there, bro.
He is, but I don't like to go on about it because he's, he allows me to be in there, and I get, I don't get any guff at all. So I don't like saying mean things about him. I know it sounds
I understand. Well, he's older. When we get older, things we do look rougher. But how would you like to wake up in the middle of the night and have that looking in your tent?
Man, I'm telling you, I'm glad it happened the way that it happened, because it let my mind from that initial 15. Well, I mean, I saw that the hole in the root ball, was covered before 15 feet, but 15 feet is about where I started taking pictures. So
we got actually we have some pictures of the tree without the figure in it. So let's go to one of those. Right.
So I had that 15 feet to kind of get used to what I was seeing. But had I woken up and opened my eyes and saw that, and my heart would have stopped.
That's actually a whole little group of trees that's been.
Yeah, it is. It's a bunch, and that's what I had tried to climb over and ended up falling. So this is a year later. I had some people saying that the root ball, and you'll be able to see the back of it here shortly, but that's a year later, and people at the time were saying, "Oh, that root ball is probably only 2 feet high. It doesn't look 7 feet to me." Here it is a year later with all the dirt off of it, and it's still at extremely close to 7 feet. So
so the top of it was close to 7 feet, or where the V is close to 7 feet.
the on the left, the top left,
Right here
is where I measured. Yeah, the other side is higher than that.
Sure, yeah, it's at least looks like a foot higher.
But where his head was and where the last picture was, I went by the one on the left. So yeah, I mean the other one is even the other side of that root ball is a lot taller. But I was measuring to get his height, so I measured the left hand side.
Now, is this the back of the root ball?
That is the back of the root ball.
Okay, and this is the V where his head was?
It is. So, which tells me that
Well,
that's why I'm not sure about his height, because I think how that's bowed out like that, he would have been leaning forward, which would bring his height down.
Right, unless he had to really push up against all these roots, which most likely wouldn't.
No, I would think that he would do the most comfortable thing.
Forward.
Yeah, he would do the most comfortable thing like any of us would, and he would probably lean forward.
But I guess this was taken after the picture.
You did the blog post, and I didn't have after pics, because I mean, as soon as it happened, once it happened, and he walked off, I was gone. I was on my way home, and that was and. Because I remember I posted something in the group the night before about getting tired of waiting for another sighting. I know I'm close to it, but and our friend Evan had actually replied to it, and he said something, and then immediately, as soon as I got home, the computer was still on, and I went on there and I said, "Never mind, I got him." So it was funny that it happened that way, but I still remember that. That was 5 years ago.
You never know. I've been out and had slow days, and where I've not even hardly found, not even found any tracks or anything. And then all at once you pop into an area and here's a whole bunch of tracks, and here's a structure, and what's that sound? It changes sometimes. What are we looking at here, Leo? I take it this is close to the root ball.
You take it right. What's interesting about this, I pulled that out of the back of the root ball. This is when I went back. When you put up the blog post, I think I went back 8 days after it happened to get you the after pics to update the blog post. When I went back, that was driven into the back of the root ball. And if you go back and look at the root ball, there's no reason for that to be driven into the back of that. There's no something picked it up and drove it in there. And as you can see, the end of it is still damp from where I had just pulled it out.
So let's go back and look. And this would have been back in here somewhere, correct?
If you just go up, bring the arrow up a little bit, right around that area there. And but I mean, if you look at there and down on the ground, there's no reason why that would naturally be in there. So I don't know if that was supposed to happen, or if I just interrupted him while he was digging at the root ball for something.
Well, maybe he was digging out grubs or something. It's hard to say.
Could have been.
And this is the V after he's gone, and this is, I mean, you're at a little bit different angle here, looks like, but this is where he would have been standing. And if you can correct me if I'm wrong, with this limb that's on the left, some people made a big mountain out of this because they didn't realize it actually runs down in front of him. Am I correct on that?
No, it was a different. It was a different limb, and that's the one I almost got sued over. But I can show you that. We go back to the original picture. I'll tell you the whole deal with that limb. If we go back to the first picture that I got of Carl.
Okay, let's go back to that. That's easy to do.
There we go.
Okay.
So you see that limb? You see the tree that's just off to the left of the. There you go. Don't go any further than that.
This one here.
That one that's no, the center. Just go up
right here.
There you go.
Okay.
So if you bring that in, you zoom it in. You see how that looks like that's hanging in front of Carl's face.
Mm-hmm.
So I had somebody take all the outside of that picture and fog it all out. They smudged it all out and said that if this was real, then that branch should be hanging in front of his face in every single picture because it's hanging in front of him. And I, no, no, no. That branch is hanging in front of me. I'm right. That's a few feet in front of me. As soon as I step forward by 2 feet, you see where it's
Yeah,
hanging from there.
yeah, you see it right here. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
well,
actually it looks kind of looks like a tree break.
yeah, well, I mean, I just figure it snapped off the top of the tree and fell down in there and got hooked up. But what he did now, this guy fancies himself a hoax buster, and that's what I'm telling you. Be careful of these people that are telling you what to believe, because he had to resort to lying and blurring out the whole all around there, so it showed nothing but, like, from, if you go into where the from there out, and he purposely blurred the rest that clearly showed
That
that
it was
it's
right.
hanging in front of me, not in front of him, not in front of
Right.
Carl.
He made the image to where it looked like this limb was just in front of his face and not actually in front of your camera.
Yep. And said, well, if then that limb should be there for all the other pictures, why isn't it? Well, because as soon as I step forward 2 feet, I'm level with that tree. I step forward another foot, and that tree's now behind me. So that limb is completely out of play as soon as I step forward by 2.5, 3 feet.
Well, and the thing is that not only were you moving, but the subject moved some as well.
Yeah, and that was something else that he said too, was that regardless of how he moved, that some form of that branch should still be visible. But
Well,
like I
not if
said,
you're past it.
no. But and that's how he manipulated the picture, was to try and make it look like it was in front of him, not in front of me. And that's why I say, look at these things and think for yourself, form your own opinion, because these people have one thing on their mind, and that is to shut everything down. Otherwise, if you were confident that you were actually busting a hoax, you wouldn't have to lie to do it.
Yeah, that's true. And there's where it was at. And
So
you've
those
not
the
seen
two
this
circles
individual?
there, are basically, he went from the where the yellow circle is, and he over to where the blue circle is, and that's where things kind of ended before he shot off to the other side.
All right, let me look just a second. I want to see something. Right here. This is one where he would have been in the blue circle.
Yep.
Because how I know is because of this little greenage right here. If you look at the little three leaves,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually right there. See
Yeah,
that?
it's still there, and yeah, and you
He would
can
have been
see
right
that
in there. Yeah.
you've got a maple leaf there that's turning color. So yeah, it was 8 or 10 days before I got back in there to get the after pictures.
All right, that's awesome. But it's a shame that we have to always defend our evidence, and it's okay for people to have questions. There's nothing wrong with questions and things like that. And I encourage people to ask questions about things and don't just take necessarily everything at face value. Uh, Sometimes things are not what they seem, and sometimes they really, really are. Let me see what I want to do here right now. Uh, I want to. We're
But
going to
I'll
talk.
tell you though, and that's something
Go ahead.
that I'm stubborn about now too, is that when people made demands of me to hand out all of those pictures at once, just because I shared that first one, they said, well, if you've got more, then you owe it to us. I don't owe you anything, but
Uh,
if I decide to share them, I will share them, and if I don't, I won't. And it was a while before I did, and that was just me being stubborn. I mean, I'm sure I must have shared them with you.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've seen.
Uh,
I,
and
I was actually looking at pictures for this show, and I actually have some other stuff that you shared with me way years and years ago, and then I got some stuff that you shared with me that to not air, to not share
Mhm.
publicly, and I've not, and that's been years. So anytime somebody gives me something to share publicly, I normally put it in a folder and I title the folder "Do Not Share," and so that way I don't accidentally do something stupid and make somebody mad at me.
Well, the thing was, what I had the right to hold, like, to share that first picture. There was only so much I was going to be able to get out of that first picture. But as I got closer, those pictures got clearer and clearer. I wanted some time for myself and Nancy and my girlfriend at the time to study those pictures before I release them. And meanwhile, I'm getting attacked left, right, and center. Um, so you have people that have a lot of stuff, and I have it on good authority. There's people that have a lot of good stuff that will never see the light of day.
Yeah.
That won't go any further than the two people that are on the screen right now, because people, and I hate to do it because we're giving them their way.
Well, now that day you took those photographs, I'm sure that your adrenaline was going crazy.
Well, it was different than other times, because other times it was, the feeling was uh, all feelings all at once, to the point where uh, if my knees weren't locked, I was so weak that they would have given out on me. Um, but with this, I was more stupefied than I was petrified. I was more stupefied than petrified.
That's good. Well, you're not expecting it because, like you said, you looked at the V in that route for probably a long time, many times, and then all at once there's something standing there looking back.
Yeah, well, and like I said, the first thing that popped into my head is there's a guy over there, because I saw eyes, and of course I saw that the nose, kind of hard to miss.
Right.
And that's something I studied on that picture too. Was wondering if, I mean, I know I wrote an article one time wondering if, how I talk about people putting every kind of forest giant and everything that's seen in the forest into the Bigfoot category,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there almost has to be multiple species.
I do
So
too.
what the heck did mated with his parent to
Yeah.
make him?
Well, that's the thing. I think the term Bigfoot and Sasquatch has become much more broad and takes up a lot of different things that are kind of like Bigfoot, or maybe something that's an offshoot from Bigfoot. And I'm sure, like I say, we don't get many Dogman sightings around here, but I'm sure people have probably seen Dogman and not got a good look at it, and they said, "I seen a Bigfoot." And it's even though they're very similar, if you see details in it, you can there's it's something different than a Bigfoot. Okay, now I'm going to share a few of my some of my crap. Uh,
So my crap.
some of my crap. Uh, I'm going to start with some tracks, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. And what I want to show you first is a track that to casting while it's still in the ground, and this was in 2013. This was after a sighting, uh, a road crossing actually, a very secluded road, uh, and it was by my father. My father, who did not believe in Bigfoot at the time. A Bigfoot walked across the road on him at about 30 feet, because he was at a turn and he had to go real slow. And as he turned out, it walked right across in front of him. And he finally told me 5 days later, and I get over into the area, and I find tracks right where he, said he crossed the road. And my thing at the time, I wanted to backtrack and see where it came from. I didn't care where it's going. I figured wherever it came from was probably home. So I backtracked it, and that day I found I know I found over 30 tracks in one line. Uh, that day altogether, I probably found over 100 tracks. Uh, and what was really amazing about the track and the track line was that you always heard that they were walking, in a straight line. And of course, when they're mobile, they do. It confirmed that easily for me. This track that I'm actually casting, I actually still have this casting. It was in heavy pine needles. Uh, this Bigfoot was probably 600 plus pounds. I walked in the same exact area as this thing was. At the time, I was over 300 pounds. I had a backpack on it, probably weighed 20 or 30 pounds, and this thing was going uh, twice as deep in the pine needles as I was. And actually, if you'll notice, this says there was 3 sightings. There was actually another sighting very close to this same area by a night watchman who was watching a shut down coal mine. Didn't ask me if I did find the home. Well, I can't say I found exactly the home, but I got a good idea of where maybe they're staying.
You didn't
So,
find the home, but you tracked down the neighborhood.
yeah, I tracked a long way. Actually, in this one area, I have went 7 or 8 miles in one direction. It gets very steep. There's some rock cliff overhangs and things like that once you get way back there. A lot of uh, mountain laurels, rhododendrons, as they call them. This is actually the casting after I pulled it out, and I want you to notice that the push point in that foot is in the middle. It's the mid-tarsal break. There's no way that that track was made by a human being. And this was one that was in, I think this was in, there's like 30 in one line. That's what this come out of. And it went right by some pine trees, of course, for pine needles. Uh, so I'm glad I still have that casting, and I use it when I do presentations or if I'm talking to somebody about the mid-tarsal break, because you don't always see it. And I probably wouldn't even notice this one if I hadn't cast it. One thing that's interesting about this casting, the heel, he had stepped on a pine cone and, of course, crushed it way down into the soil, but it made the casting a little more rounded on the heel. It wasn't really as rounded. The other ones wasn't as rounded as that. All right, let's see what else we got here. I want to show you.
Yeah, and it is tough to tell. Like at times, if you don't cast, if you just look, you don't always see it. But I know people when they cast, there it is.
Yep. I want to show you this, which is goes right along with that mid-tarsal dealio. And of course, nothing explains it out as easy as looking at a human foot. If you notice, the ball of a human foot is much more toward the front. This is when we walk. This part right in here is what pushes into the ground and propels us forward. Well, with the Bigfoot, it's more in the middle, but you don't always see it. The soil has to be conducive for it, and it really has to be moving on, so to speak. But now that's not all it came from this area. With that, all those tracks being right beside that tree and me making the casting and all that stuff, this is where I set up a game camera. I set it right on the big old hemlock tree that was right beside where these tracks were. And I'm glad that I did. And while I know this is going to be hard for some of you to see, I still want to share it. If I can get it to come up here, there we go. Almost through this picture away. Of course, the date is slightly off. This was a brand new game camera. The date is slightly off. I'd have to go back and look exactly what. Seemed like it was June or July, to be honest with you, but I can't say for 100% fact because I don't remember at this time. I'd have to look it up. And if, of course, the time was basically right. It was about 3 a.m. in the morning. But I almost threw this away. You can actually see there's a bulky figure there. All this white is actually green leaves. I got another picture too I'll show you of daytime photograph. But I've actually stood in the same spot as this figure, and this figure and myself are it's slightly taller than me. I would guess the figure to be probably 6'6". 13-inch track. Normally you take half of that and you get a good estimate of how tall a figure is. It's roughly you take a 13-inch track, you cut it in half, you got 6.5 foot tall Bigfoot. That's normally how that works for me. I've found that to work over and over, to be honest with you. Let me see what else I got here. Here we go. There's just a little blow up I did for the figure. Then if you color it in, I've done this just to maybe try to show some detail. You can see some people try to tell me this was a bear, but all we have around here is black bear, and black bear are rarely over 5 foot tall. So
that's not a bear. I remember it from years ago, and I still have the same attitude when I see someone write that under that picture. It's a bear. It's not a bear.
That's no way. I mean,
you've never seen a bear, or you've never seen a Bigfoot. You think that's a bear? That's not a bear.
Well, I've had people tell me it was a bear, but if it's a bear, it is one that's almost 7 foot tall, black bear. That's even more rare, I guess.
It's a barefoot.
There you go, a barefoot man bear pig. Now here is another photograph from the game camera during the daytime. Wow.
Hey, Jamie.
You can see about the date that it's been almost a month, I guess, or close to it. And you can see there's nothing really there that would make you think that there's a Bigfoot standing back there. So I can safely say that I think that the track casting that I have is actually from this individual. So, people say, well, you can't catch a Bigfoot on game cam, and I think you can. I know you can. An element of surprise. To me, it wasn't expecting it. I've not caught one since that I know of.
It's not going to be simply because of the way they live and how we can't wrap our heads around how alert and how aware they are of their environment. But there are going to be times when, to say, it's not going to be a common occurrence to catch them on a trail camera, and I think you would agree with that. It's not going to be something that's common.
No.
Because they're too aware. But there's going to be times flukes happen, and there's going to be times when you can catch them off guard.
Well, a trail camera, excuse me, has such limited view. I did a study on it, on how many actual forest acres. I got a post on our website from years ago, and I calculated that if a game camera could cover 1 square acre, which they don't. Everyone was needing so many millions of cameras just to cover it all, and you just can't. It's impossible. It's impossible. Let's see. What else we want to talk about?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of studies that, well, no, not a lot to the extent. Well, I'm not saying anything bad about them. So, look at the Olympic project.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good idea in theory, But we're not dealing with a cougar that's going to walk out in front of one. We're not dealing, so the times that they're caught on game cameras, it's not going to be I don't see there ever being a jackpot catch on a game camera that's people aren't going to argue with. Well, there's nothing you're going to catch on any camera that people aren't going to argue with, but
no, it could be waving at you and it's still.
But yeah, to say it can't happen, yeah, it can happen. It's just not. It's not going to be frequent, but getting pictures of them at all isn't frequent.
No. Well, I'll tell you this, and I'll move on to something else about the area. The day I was setting up those game cameras, I wouldn't only want to set up, actually set up, 2 or 3 that day. And this comes into the vocal part. I had that camera there set and caught that Bigfoot, but probably, I'll say 40 yards away, I set another camera. Actually, I think I set it first, maybe. No, I didn't. And as I was putting the game cam on the tree, I heard talking. But it was just far enough away, I couldn't make out what it was or what it was saying. And at first I thought, well, that's my dad. He's come to check on me because I was by myself and the storm was coming up. And well, I stood there. I was pretty nervous putting the camera up, so I just kind of stood there and waited to see if my dad popped out around the mountain laurel bushes or whatever. And I took my camera and actually filmed, but no, nothing never came. And it started raining. If I'm not mistaken, it started raining right after that. And I left. And I came home, and my mom and dad were not even home. But that's not the only vocalization I've had in there. So we'll get into more of the vocalization stuff here, maybe in the last 30 minutes. And I know Leo's had experience with the vocalizations.
A time or two.
And also in this area, I found numerous tracks. Like I told you, over 100 easily. This year was actually a track I found. There was 3 of them. And this is probably within 25 yards of where the game cam picture came from. They were three tracks, all in line. This was probably the most detailed. So I actually made a casting of it, and it was just a small juvenile track. That's a different one there. Right there's the actual track once I pulled it out of the ground. Definitely not a bear. Again, they always want to go to a bear.
Yeah, it's funny how every time somebody calls something a bear, it's always a bear that just conveniently has no claws.
Well, in this area too, I found. I was talking earlier about the stick formation and the rotting log that where the Bigfoot would step, it would tear up the log. This is all in the same general area, all within a rock's throw of each other for the most part. Which I've explored the area extensively, and I've had vocals in several different areas, different places in that area. A lot of different foot tracks. The biggest foot track I found, actually, we documented it in the Bigfoot film, Bigfoot the Legend is Real, which also features some of your footage, Leo. I think it was like 22 inches, which is a very large track.
That is huge.
You're looking at something that's 11 or 12 feet tall. Unless he's just got some kind of abnormality in his foot, makes it extremely large. Let's see what else we got.
And that's something too. When you were talking about the measurement of the foot can give you the rough height, and 99% of the time that's true. But another thing with Carl is, and all I could do was measure that one side of the root ball to give me a rough estimate. So it's between 7 and 7.4. He's got 17-inch feet. That makes no sense at all So
Wow.
what is one side of his family bred? You know, that's I thought, look back at Neanderthal and stuff like that. I looked at all that stuff, and I honestly don't know, but I know that he's half something else.
I want to show you a couple more tracks, and then I want to show you another picture, anyways. This is not one that I cast. It was a team member actually cast this track out in Oregon, and it is a very unique track uh, because let me get to it because it only has 4 visible toes. Uh, could be a lot of reasons for this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe the 5th digit just didn't.
That would be my guess.
Or maybe it lost it in an injury, or Cody bit it off when it was a baby, or who knows? It's hard to say.
Yeah, but I would, the first thing that would pop into my mind is that little pinky toe just didn't make the impression. So it could be
I thought
something
about that.
just that simple.
And another interesting thing about this too is that if you'll notice, this track was actually inside of a larger track. And one of the theories is that they teach the younger Bigfoot to walk in the larger tracks to help conceal. And it kind of makes sense to me. Of course, we got Patty. The 82 is from Minnesota, Grays Harbor, I think it was where it's from, I think. And the 2013 is the one I just showed you, the 4 toe. That's actually a copy of it that I'd made. Still only 4 toes. You say maybe the pinky just didn't show. And the reason I like to use this photograph is because the 2016 photograph is of a human foot. I've recently seen experienced researchers, post up a whole bunch of tracks that look like that, with a big high arch in it, and the rounded toes and the squished up toes and all that. They're human tracks. There's just no way that they're Bigfoot tracks. And these here were in a very odd place. When I first found them, I thought I had found a whole bunch of Bigfoot tracks because I was looking at them from a distance. And I thought, nah, I'm going to cast that just to make sure. Well, I was correct. It was a dumb person, evidently. They were walking in a dry cove, a dry lake cove, barefooted, which is really dumb. When you think about broken bottles and fish hooks and all that kind of stuff, it's just not smart. But that's why you got to be careful, guys, who you follow. I've seen more than one person post up human foot tracks and pass them off as Bigfoot and get mad if you try to say, look, kind of human to me. They get mad at you. So that's why you got to be a little bit careful.
I've seen the toes, especially actually in some sandy areas. I've seen the toes not be so spread apart.
Right.
But if you have a raise like that that's it, that you can't pass that off as Bigfoot. That's human.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about that. The toes, I mean, it all depends on the circumstances, but when it comes to the high arch like that in the foot, that's not Bigfoot. Bigfoot those are flat tracks.
Well, what kind of seals it other than high arch is that the push point. You can see it's definitely up here, and we know Bigfoot's is normally in the middle when you see the push point. Let me see what else I got here. I do need to show you this next thing. It's actually a picture. I got a couple things more I want to try to get to. Let me go back to this. Now we done looked through the game cam photograph, but this is an interesting little story. I know that's very hard to see, and it's dark, and you can probably see a hint of the figure there. We were out on our ATVs part of the area at the time, the area only way you could get to it was really you could park at the gate and walk. It was now you can actually get down to it now, but at this time it was a gated area. There's a little creek there, and me and my wife was out on our ATVs. I thought, well, let's stop here and we'll go down and we'll look in the little sandbars for tracks and whatnot. So we get down there and we look around the creek, and then just out from the creek about, I don't know, 20 feet, 25 feet is a mud hole like area. And so let's check it out. So we're there checking it out, and we don't really find any tracks other than some turkey tracks, I think, were there, something like that, maybe coyote track or something. So we turn to leave, and something catches my eye. I see something move. I see movement. So I take out my camera and I just take a picture of where I thought the movement come from. And this when I brought it home, this figure looking thing was on there. I know it's hard to see, and I can't say for sure what it is, but when you lighten it up, it becomes there's a little more definition there. And this is an area where I found, generally where I found some stick formations and a few tracks, but not down this low. And this also there's a field adjacent to this that during hunting season, the deer go there. They used to go there in droves. I mean, you would look out there and there would be 50 deer standing out in this field, just hiding from the hunters. They just go there and stand because nobody used to hunt up through there. And I actually did go back and took an after picture, and there was nothing there, which I know the lighting and stuff is slightly different, but what's the chances of me seeing movement, taking a picture, and there'd be a figure there just out of the blue, you know?
Go back to that after picture again, Tom.
Sure. It was actually right in through here. So there wasn't a whole lot there. It's a good area.
That's the thing is, you probably feel the same way I do about, well, chances are there's something there in that picture, but
yeah, it's inconclusive, I know. But this is a track right here now. I've found a lot of stuff over the years, man. This is a small track. I was talking earlier about there were several tracks on, and the one that busted up on me was the one that had very good toe definition. And you're talking about something that is probably, this was probably about 5 miles back on a gated area that you would have to walk back there. So the chances of it being a kid back there hunting or a kid with his dad or something like that, it's very slim as well. Kind of looks like, with the glasses, it kind of looks like a mouth. Kind of looks funny. Definitely a very young one for sure. It's even.
Do you remember what the measurement was on that?
Well, I don't. You got a pair of glasses on? That's. I think it was my wife's glasses, or maybe that's the one I do when I'm doing some of my artwork stuff. The old cheap Walmart glasses. So they're not very big, you know. I actually took some other pictures of this too. I just didn't. Let me see this. That's the one. I got something. That's the one. This year's actually a good track too. It's a little bit hard to see, but look how wide it was. Very wide. You can see where it smashed down the leaves. I got one particular. This near is really cool, man. It was in water. There were several that walked straight through the big water hole. And you know, a person is not going to do that. We'll go around the water holes. We don't walk through them.
Man, you're not going to believe this. When you said to send track pictures, I didn't send the one that I had that's inside inside a huge puddle, and I wish I would have now because you shared one of yours.
Yeah, there were several, and there's actually a handprint, a small one's handprint close to this area as well. I don't know what it was doing. It's really small. I mean, it's probably nowhere near even as big as my hand, but it wasn't so small. It was like a raccoon or anything like that. I mean, it was bigger than that. Of course, it looked like maybe a 4 or 5 year old child's hand, and I didn't even share it. So, but I've seen people share raccoon ones as well. But yeah, people generally humans don't just walk through water holes.
Not when they're of sound mind, no.
See what else we got, Leo. I think that wrapped me up, buddy.
You mean to tell me that we fit all that in?
Didn't I tell you?
I can't see what time it is. I'm half blind.
It's 9:32 is what I got. But we do have some other stuff we can talk about. We want to talk about vocals too. That's the only thing we've not really covered.
That's true.
So we probably need to spend a little time on talking about some vocals before we do our announcement we wanted to get to today. I do have a picture of Lat, a couple of pictures from Lat we want to share toward the end of the show, more toward the end of the show. I know you've had plenty of vocals. A lot of times I see people talk about, they ask the question, does Bigfoot have a language? Of course, they have their own language. I've heard them speak, I guess it's their own language, but I've also heard them use English. I've had several holler hey and stuff like that at me over the years. And I know you have heard quite a few vocals. Can you recall the first time you heard vocals?
The first time I heard a vocal. Wow. Well, I mean, I heard in that 10 years, that first 10 years of researching where really nothing happened but vocals that I had to question because I didn't know what they came from. So I would have to say during that first 10 years, I probably did, but just didn't recognize what it was. Caught my attention. I went, well, what is that? But if I didn't know, I just didn't know. So I would think probably within that first 10 years, but definitely by the time that I was in New Brunswick. So by the time 2007, moving into the spring of 2008, in there is where we were getting them frequently.
Are you talking about howls or actually speech or?
Actually, the one that there was myself and my ex and her parents and a friend of the family were all outside. And do you remember the scream that used to be on the old Animal Planet website when Finding Bigfoot was on there? The scream that Cliff used to do. It sounded like Cliff was up on that mountain and did it. And everybody jumped and they're like, what was that? What was that? And they're freaking out. And I'm like, I think I know what that is, but I can't say. If I tell these people this, they're going to think I'm nuts. So I did end up telling them. And I went up and got on the laptop and I went on the Animal Planet site and I hit play. And I said, bingo. So that vocal was the one that got me started researching in that area.
I actually have a capture here. This is something new. I've not tried it this way. We actually have it on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to try to play it. Let's see. This is actually a capture that you had sent me. Hopefully. And there it went. I heard it. And we'll let you hear this a couple times. I think it's pretty. To me, it sounds like it says the same thing to me.
Well, that's what now I can't listen to it without hearing that. And Becca's over there nodding her head too. The same thing with her. We listen to it, and we can't help but hear what you said that you heard. And
what were you doing? You was looking at an old structure.
Yeah, I was looking at a structure that had logs coming down this way and then across this way, and I pretty well the same frame as ones in area 2, which is 60 miles away. And see, I'm smart tonight because I looked that up yesterday to see how far it was away. Well, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that where I live is where I research, and it's not. None of this stuff is cheap. So it's 60 miles away. So yeah, so we're down there and we get that vocal while I'm looking at that thing. And then was it the year before or the year after? In almost the exact same spot, we got another vocal, and I still haven't sent that to you, but I will. But yeah, you heard "That's the hard part."
That's the hard part.
Now I can't listen to that without cracking up, thinking, why would one just out of the blue yell out, "That's the hard part"?
It's because you was looking at that structure. That's the hard part. Whatever he done there was hard. It was hard for him to do. But yeah, that's what I hear is that's the hard part. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know what he might have meant by it, but that's what it sounded like to me. Well, the thing, if it was, I mean, I hadn't even said anything to try to get any. That doesn't even make sense as an answer to anything. But because I didn't. I mean, right there on the video, you can see I don't say a word. So all of a sudden, I have somebody screaming back at me. That's the hard part. Well, that's because you was looking at it, because you were studying it over, trying to figure it out. He was letting you know that's the hard part, making those things. Apparently so. But I'm sure that was an interesting day. Did you hear that at the time of was recording, when you was recording it? That one I did. The one from either the year before or the year after, I didn't. I heard it. I noticed it when I replayed it. That one is it's a shorter clip that just says, it sounds like to me it just says "aga." So, but yeah. I mean, you can listen to it with your ghost hunting ears and your spirit box ears and see what you can come up with. But that's well, I think that helps me because I've done a lot of paranormal investigation, spirit boxes. I picked out voices that were actually speaking backwards. Through a EVP box, to a ghost box, and when you play it forward, it actually says something. And I think it was something that I'm just an old misguided soul, I think is what it said. Yep. Which was very, very interesting capture from some ghost hunting. And speaking of which, I have a little mini investigation I need to go on. Hopefully this coming Wednesday. If not, it'll be the following Wednesday. A friend of mine's got some activity going on in her house, and she didn't want to say a whole lot about it on the internet, of course, because people think you're a Fruit Loop if you say, hey, something's going on in my house. So I'm gonna go down there and see if I can figure out who it is or what it is, and see if we really need to try to make it leave or just try to make it be quiet for a while. But I think me and you both are on the same page that for sure Bigfoot has a language. I know the ones that I've heard, some of them do say English words. like hay and stuff like that. But my opinion is probably that it varies some per region. That the dialect is a little bit different, just like with people. I know I talk really uh, odd to most people because I'm a hillbilly from the south,
And
southeast.
I'm a hillbilly from the north, so I get the same thing.
Well, then you take people who live in the city. Of course, I know when me and my wife was dating, or might have been married. Uh, I went up there to Michigan, just a little bit outside of Detroit there, and I went into a place to eat, and I just ordered a Pepsi, and the woman just had me say it again because of my unique way of saying Pepsi. I guess I don't know. So I get that sometime, but
I, yeah, one of the things that got me in Kentucky. By the way, I didn't think you sounded any different than anybody else when you said Pepsi. Pepsi's Pepsi. But how you guys got me when I first got to Kentucky is I would say something, and whoever we were around would say, "I'll tell you what," and I sat there and waited for them to tell me something, and they didn't. They were
uh,
just agreeing with me by saying, "I'll
yeah,
tell you what," but they would say, "I'll tell you what," and I'd be sitting there like a fool waiting for them to tell me what.
so tell
There
me.
was no what. They
Well,
were just
I think
agreeing.
when it comes to Bigfoot, I would assume that their dialect is very some. Even us, we use certain slang words, and just like you just showed, I'm sure they got certain slang words in different areas too that they use. Uh, I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty much a give-in that for one, they do have a language, and that is probably varies per region.
I think it varies as much as what the different Native American languages did, and I also think that I know for sure that they can speak English, and I know they can speak it fluently because I've heard it. But I also know that their language, what I can gather from their language, it's a lot of it ends in AH, and I don't know if that's the word or how they pronounce it because it seems to show up. That seems to be the most dominant part of their language that I hear a lot is an AH sound at the end of a word. So, because people have said to me that because I put in the book that I had when I was shown the baby after I filmed uh, her mother while she was pregnant. When I was shown the baby, she stood there and she spoke English to me, and when she did, then this is going into a strange part, but I'm not going to act like it didn't happen because it's strange because it did happen. So the way when she talked, the way her lips were moving did not match what I was hearing her. I was hearing her in perfect English. The way her lips were moving, they kind of her top lip would kind of curl like Elvis. When people do a bad impression of Elvis,
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So
been there, done that.
it looked like a badly dubbed movie. So was she saying something different than what I was hearing? I don't know. I don't get into the whole
Yeah,
any kind of the weird stuff unless I
that's just an
absolutely have
unknown.
to. It could just be that that's how she moves her lips when she speaks. But she spoke English very well. There was only minor mistakes. There was minor words cut short, minor things like that. And I think the further you go back, like into the mountains and stuff like that, they may not. They may only know a few words like hey and different things like that. They may only know a few words
Hmm.
because they're around fewer people. The ones
Right.
that are in the lower lands that are around people and observe people frequently, if you move to a new town and you don't speak French, you're picking up French pretty fast.
Yeah,
So
you
if
have to.
you yeah, it just happens before you know it. So that's why people can accept it or not accept it.
Well, I
Changes
think
nothing
it's
for
passed
me.
down too. I would say the elders pass it down to the young ones
Oh, definitely. They
for that
if
purpose.
Yeah, if they know that they're going to be around us and uh, in an area where they're going to be around us and they can observe us, then absolutely they probably teach them English along with their language.
Well, wouldn't it be beneficial if, let's say, let's do a hypothetical. Let's say you had a Bigfoot that was about to, two hunters was about to walk up on it, and you had another Bigfoot that was going to say, "Hey, come over here." The hunters would stop and see what's going on and let them. So it could be beneficial. It could be a beneficial thing to them. I've had several reports and some families. One particular family member who was out ginsening, and he had, not only did he have a visual that day, but he actually saw two, but he also had a lot of vocals, and he didn't know what it was at first. He was just going through looking for ginseng. He could hear what sounded like people talking, and he said to him it sounded like Russian because it's real fast speech. And he's going through ginseng, and he finds a big 4 fork of ginseng, and he says, "Thank the Lord," because he found it's worth good money. And as he did that, he looked up, and there stood two Bigfoot up on the knob above him. And of course, then he realized what he'd been hearing talking for the past little bit, and it was a adult female and a young one that was about half the size. One of them was, one of them was red, and one of them was black. The younger one was black, and the older one was the female. He said he could see her breast and everything. He didn't want to go on camera. He had a medical condition, and it kind of made his face slightly disfigured, which I don't think it's bad, but self-conscious about it, and so he didn't want to go on camera or anything like that and talk about it. 100% believe the guy. Because I know the area. The area is a place where I found tracks and had more things going on there. That's pretty interesting. That's kind of a cool story that happened here locally. And then there's one where me and my dad was ginsening. My dad had heart surgery, and he hadn't been past it just maybe a few months, and they'd turned him loose. He'd done some deer hunting in the winter, and actually late winter. Then later on that year, when it come ginseng time, he wanted to go ginseng. No, I take that back. We actually went ginsenging first, and then he went deer hunting later on. And when we got into the mountains, we'd made up if one of us goes back to the truck first, just blow the horn, and the other one would come. And the mountain was very steep. Then we split up, went up the mountain, and I got up there and I was finding ginseng, man. I found a whole bunch. I was probably, 20, 25 plants there. And I heard the horn blow on the truck. And I thought, man, he's got sick on me, because we hadn't been out there long. And I thought, he's got sick on me because he wasn't very far from his heart surgery. So I hurried up and dug the biggest ginseng, and so I started going down the mountain. And every little bit, I would stop and I'd make a big loud whoop to try to let him know that I was coming. Just stay in the truck, not try to come out. And I'd go down the mountain a little bit more, and I'd stop and I'd whoop. And I was going fast as I could, and it's a very dangerous area, and it's so steep. And I get all the way down to where there's an old oil well. Got the big round reservoir tank. And it's almost where the truck's parked at, but I can't see the truck. And once I get out into there, I'm starting to walk, and I hear something going through the mountains. And I thought it was my dad. I said, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "Hey, I'm right here." And that, whatever that was, stopped and said, "Hey, whoop." And the horn blowed on the truck right after that. And so it was so dark under there, I couldn't see anything. I actually took a few pictures, but it was just so dark where the canopy hung over.
Mm-hmm.
And I hurried up and went out to the truck, and I asked Dad, I said, "Did anybody go through here? Or did anybody else through here? Because maybe a four-wheeler or something like that come through there." He said, "No, there's nobody here." I said, "Well, I think that was a Bigfoot right over there." He said, "Well, I heard something go through the woods, but I thought it was you coming." I said, "No, it wasn't me. He'd hollered at me when I come down and got in the road." But yeah, that was a fun experience. But by the time I got down there and got to the truck, man, I was too tired to worry about Bigfoot at that point.
I think the Well, I don't know. That's the hard part, is kind of giving it a run for its money now. But up until that point, the funniest one was when I went in and accidentally left my phone turned on, and it rang, and I said a few cuss words, and uh, GD phone, and I shut the phone off, and yeah, just like 3 to 4 seconds later, I hear the little one repeating what I just said, and I thought, oh man, that's not good. I'm teaching them to cuss, and that is not good.
But now I've had several times where Bigfoot's hollered at me like that. And usually it's hey. I don't know why. It's just hey. I don't know.
I would think is because it's easy for them. It's just pushing air out of their lungs and saying hey. So it's probably just because it's easy, like it's easy for us.
No, that day I was coming down the mountain, and I don't know. I was kind of, I guess, in a way, I was kind of panicked because I thought Dad was sick because he's just not, like I say, he wasn't far out from his heart surgery, and maybe the Bigfoot heard the panic, I guess, or the fear in my whoops, and was coming to see what was going on. You know, you never know. That's just hypothetical type thing.
Well, yeah, but with these hypothetical things, people throw them out without any consideration.
But it was a weird experience that day. I mean, that's a lot going on. Have we lost you, Leo? Uh oh. He's frozen forever. Oh no, Leo. Come back. Okay, I guess Leo is gone and it's just me. Which we're show's about to wind down. If he comes back in here, I'll throw him back on here. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. And I don't know, maybe the whole thing glitched. I'm not for sure. I don't know. Been a lot of weird stuff going on tonight as far as glitches, and we don't have any storms right now. But yeah, me and Leo have been privileged. We've had a lot of experiences and a lot of weird stuff go on, and seen a lot of weird stuff, and found a lot of tracks and things like that. Before we close out today, I do want to share uh, one other little thing with you. Let me see if I can actually open it up. We are working on a little something. Let's see what we got here. Okay, Leo's computer froze up, or okay, no problem. We're about ready to close out. If he wants to come back in, Rebecca, he can. I don't care a bit to let him in. And I understand sometimes computers malfunction and overheat and get hot and that type of stuff. That's just part of the game. I don't know what happened earlier when everything just kind of glitched and went away and come back. It's really weird. But the announcement we wanted to share with you guys is that Mysteries Unlimited, which we've got a Facebook page for it. We do our podcast. I don't know. I think this is 11 shows. I don't know if we've missed any shows or not. We're going to probably miss one, and well, I know we're going to miss one in May. No bad luck because I got an expedition type thing going on. But we are also going to be turning Mysteries Unlimited into a magazine. Hopefully, it will be also an ebook, and it will be a printed version of it. So we're still a pretty good ways out on it, but we've got some of it done. There's a little bit of the inside of kind of what it looks like. We've got a lot of cool stories in it and stuff that you've probably not heard or you don't know about. And like we've always said, our show is not just about Bigfoot, which we've been doing a lot of Bigfoot lately. We also like about any mysteries, missing persons, UFOs. We do a little bit of everything. Yeah, Leo disappeared on us. Good night, Leo. I didn't get to pick on him today much, but yeah, that was our announcement. We want to announce to everybody that we are going to be doing a digital magazine and possibly a print magazine for Mysteries Unlimited. Hopefully, we'll get that out within the next month or so. That's kind of our target. We've already got quite a bit of it done, but we want to turn out something good that people will enjoy and people will like. As for next week's show, we've not actually decided on a topic or a guest yet. We may bring a guest in. It's not 100% sure. Me and Leo usually discuss that over the weekend, and we normally make our decision on Monday or Tuesday or something like that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and end the show. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Hope you enjoyed it. I wish we could have maybe got into some other. I know Leo and I both have tons of pictures and tracks and things and tons of stories that we can share. So, and we want to share it with people, and we want to give truthful information. As most of you probably know, we led tonight with the story of the Bigfoot walking around the lake. It's really an old story from 2013 that people keep changing the location and reposting. So we don't want to do things like that. We want to be honest and upfront, and we want to provide good information, solid information, because in the Bigfoot world, it's really hard to find good information and truthfulness, sadly. But appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time, probably Friday. No bad luck. Y'all be good, and go out there and get squatchy. Go out there and find you a Bigfoot. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.